Please join me for a few moments of silent centering. And now, please remain seated as we join in singing our ingathering hymn, "There Is More Hope," and the words appear in your order of service. Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. This is a community where curious seekers gather to explore spiritual, ethical, and social issues in an accepting and nurturing environment. Unitarian Universalism supports the freedom of conscience of each individual, as together we seek to be a force for good in the world. My name is Karen Rose Gredler, and on behalf of the congregation, I would like to extend a special welcome to visitors. We are a welcoming congregation, so whomever you are and wherever you happen to be on your life's journey, we celebrate your presence among us. Newcomers and anyone else are encouraged to stay for our fellowship hour after the service and to visit the library, which is directly across from the center doors of this auditorium. Bring your beverages and your questions. Members of our staff and lay ministry will be on hand to welcome you. You may also look for persons holding teal-colored stoneware coffee mugs. These are FUS members, very knowledgeable about our faith community, who would welcome visiting with you. Experienced guides are generally available as well to give a building tour after each service. If you would like to learn more about the sustainably designed addition or our National Landmark Meeting House across the parking lot, please meet near those at the front near the glass windows on your left side of the auditorium after the service. We welcome children to stay for the duration of the service. However, because it is difficult for some in attendance to hear in this lively acoustical environment, our child haven and commons back in that corner and along the back of the auditorium are excellent places to retire if a child needs to talk or move around. The service can still be seen and heard well from those areas. This would also be an excellent time to turn off all devices that might cause a disturbance during this hour, especially cell phone ringers, please. And now I'd like to acknowledge those individuals who help our services run smoothly. David Briles is working sound for us. Tom Boykoff is our lay minister. Our greeter is Patty Whitty. Our ushers are Tom Dolmage and Jim Hofstein. On hospitality, making coffee and lemonade, are Rups and Bis Nitschke. And as far as I know, our tour guide is John Powell, so there will be one after this service. Please note the announcements in your red floors insert in the order of service, which describes upcoming events at the Society and provides more information about today's activities. Again, welcome. We hope today's service will stimulate your mind, touch your heart, and stir your spirit. Thank you.
Holy and beautiful is the custom which brings us together in the presence of the Most High, to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened and to be strengthened through these quiet hours. May we breathe worship into the ages, the cathedral music of history, the unseen guest attends. Faith, hope, and love are here. Let all our hearts prepare them a place. Good morning and welcome. I invite you all to rise and join in the lighting of our chalice this morning. The words can be found in your order of service. Reverently, I offer this symbol of hope. Reverently, I give you flame to you. This is the light that is lit for everyone who comes into the world. Bear this light to others, one by one. Let the flame go from life to life, till all is lit with its warmth. And I encourage you to share the warmth by exchanging friendly greetings now with one another this morning. Time that I would like to invite all children and young at heart to come up. And this is normally the time that we would have the message for all ages. Come on up, Finn. And I especially want to invite folks who may be younger at heart, but not quite still wanting to be up here for children's stories, because we are not doing the children's story right now. We are going to do the sermon right now, and I need you all to help me. So can you come stand up here with me? Can you? Well, so the sermon today is all about hope. And I was thinking, who better to write about hope than the youngest among us? So if there's anyone here that feels like they're young at heart and full of hope, I'd love it if you'd come up and we can all write the sermon together. So this is how we write a sermon. You ready? First of all, we have to say hi to everybody. Can we do that? Say hi and welcome. Hi. Okay, all right. And then, see, they're probably feeling pretty nervous. It's totally fine. Sometimes I do that when I do sermons too. So sometimes people are feeling pretty nervous, so we have to make them feel at ease. Does anybody have a joke or something funny to say? Finn, you always have a joke. Do you have something funny to say?
Yeah.
All right, let's hear it.
A dinosaur eating a banana.
A dinosaur eating a banana is really funny. Okay, see, so now... Great. And if anytime anybody in the congregation who is young at heart and full of hope wants to contribute to this sermon, you can. So then we introduce the theme. Does anybody here know what hope means to them? Does anybody have a definition for hope? Yeah, Karen Rose.
Wonderful little people
Oh,
who will someday be the wonderful adults at FUS.
that is a fantastic definition of hope. So hope for the future. So then the thing that you do with a sermon is you make it personal. Does anybody have anything that they're hopeful for? Maybe like what you're hopeful for before Christmas, or maybe when you're getting off a long day at work. Does anybody have anything that they're hopeful for? Yeah? Well, we are a nonpartisan congregation, but we have hope. But we have hope that our political leaders will move forth with values and principles that we aspire to in our best spiritual selves. Great. So now that we are all at ease and welcome and here and know what hope means and what we might be personally hopeful for, we have to make it community-based. So that was kind of community-based, but is there anything this specific community should be hopeful for? Yeah? Well, what? Black Lives Matter. It's very hopeful that we are starting to recognize that all among us have worth and dignity in line with our Unitarian Universalist principles, and that's pretty cool. And then, at the end of the sermon, you have to tie it up with theology or church talk. So, yeah, Finn.
Every time when you love somebody, you give them a hug.
And that is the best theology I've ever heard. Every time that you love someone, you give them a hug, and that would give me hope. And do you think maybe church makes you hopeful because you get lots of hugs? Yeah. Oh, this is such a good sermon. All right. So, to summarize, we are hopeful. Hope is thinking about the future, and we are hopeful because we believe that our leaders can take us places that are in line with our values, and we are seeing social movements also start to align with our values, and this specific community is a place where we can practice those values and give lots of hugs. Yes? Oh, such a good sermon. And this is what I really need your help with, because at the end of the sermon, you have to stand up, Finn, and say, Amen. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Amen. Good sermon, everybody. Good sermon. All right. Well, thank you, children, for your wonderful sermon today. We are going to sing you out to your classes so you can go have some summer fun after a hard church day giving a sermon. We'll sing number 354 if you all want to rise. Our reading today comes from one of my colleagues at Middle Church in New York, which is a fantastic church. It's like the second best one in the country, and you all should check it out online. He says, let's talk about sermons. I did the math and I figured out that so far in my life, I have endured approximately 1,696 sermons. And I'm responsible for preaching at least a few hundred of them myself. Only, here's the thing, I don't remember most of them. And if you add up the sermons you've heard, you probably don't either. So let's talk about sermons, not those long-winded, lecture hall-inspired 3-point sermons that always have awesome alliteration. I don't know anybody who's guilty of that. Let's talk about the sermon that everybody actually remembers. The sermon with the potential for the greatest impact on everyone in the room. The sermon that the congregation almost always loves, but the pastor almost always overlooks. So what is the sermon that everyone always remembers? Message for all ages. Roz is clairvoyant. Most of us call it the children's message, only this is where we've already started out in the wrong direction. And if you remember only one thing I say in the next 300 seconds, remember this: it's not a children's message, it's a message for all ages. A message for all ages, by the very nature of what it's called, is something entirely different. Yes, I might be talking with children, but this is a message for everyone. This is the sermon that everyone actually remembers because it's the sermon that's for everyone. When we speak a language that all of us can understand, we find a truth that's truly universal. A message for all ages is a chance to say something for all. For example, it's common for me to end up in the social hall after worship, surrounded by a group of good thinkers equipped with coffee and keen logical discernment. And they say, I always love your messages. You speak to the point of the matter so succinctly, you really illustrate the topic in a useful manner. As they continue to explain, I realize that what grounded the message for them was the time for all ages. Because everyone learns from allegory and analogy, but there I go again with my alliteration. Intergenerational means we rethink the whole thing, building it from the ground up. Because when an 8-year-old understands what you're saying, you can be pretty sure the rest of the room does too. And adults are more engaged when you tap into their senses of whimsy and wonder. Not to mention that older folks need to be entertained too. A message for all ages reminds us that the Word made flesh continues to be made fresh, a gift of God for all people of God, not just the ones with a 12th grade reading level. And so to you preachers, and sometimes we're all preachers, to you preachers of the sermons that everyone actually remembers, may you never again lead a children's message. And may everything you do be a message for all ages. Our message for all ages today is called A Story of Hope. It is written by your ministerial intern on her last time with you for a congregation that gives her much to be hopeful for. Hope was a young girl who lived in the land of gladness. Her hair was made of sunshine, and her freckles were bits of stardust. Hope's meals came from the spring of possibility, which was located in the forest of youth. Every day, Hope would take long, satisfying draws from the spring of possibility and then go to sleep in the temple of equality, which was located just outside of the forest. The Temple of Equality was a large, beautiful building rivaled by none in architecture for its perfect balance. The temple had many, many rooms, and each room was just as beautiful and ornate as the next. Every room was different, but no room had more, and no room had less. One day, Hope's parents, Time and Knowledge, presented Hope with some devastating news. They were moving the family away from the land of gladness and out of the forest of youth. Hope would now reside in the neighboring land named Responsibility. Hope did not want to move. All her life, she had been happy in the land of gladness near the forest of youth, and she certainly didn't want to move away from her temple of equality, as it was the place where she felt the most at home, the most secure. Feeling lost, Hope confided her fears in her greatest companion, Faith. As always when needed, Faith was close by, and Faith told Hope that there would be other lands and other temples of equality, and that in fact, if she took the time to come back to it, the land of gladness would always be waiting for her. But what about the forest of youth? Asked Hope. That you must say goodbye to, said Faith, but you'll always remember it in your heart. But the spring of possibility, exclaimed Hope, it's my only source of sustenance. Faith again assured Hope there will be other springs in other lands. She told her it was time to go, that her parents, Time and Knowledge, understood the points in life when one must move on. So as Time and Knowledge packed the family's belongings, Hope went one last time to the forest of youth to take one last draw from the spring of possibility. But when she got there, the spring wasn't at her usual drinking place. Hope was thirsty, so she searched and she searched, but she couldn't locate the spring of possibility. And as she was searching, something very strange began to happen. The leaves in the forest of youth began to turn colors. First, bright reds and oranges, and then more browns. And when the leaves reached their brown stage, they began to fall from the trees. Hope was scared, so she called out once again to her companion, Faith. Hope, you must find another spring, said Faith. The forest of youth is changing seasons. It's time to go. So Hope traveled with her parents, Time and Knowledge, to the land of responsibility. And once she got there, she was still very thirsty, so she went in search of a new spring of possibility. Hope learned on her search that there were many springs by many names, and that not all of them were nourishing. She came across the springs of anger, fear, and resentment, and they made her feel sick. She came across the spring of hatred, and it had the scent of poison, so she didn't drink. The spring of confusion made her feel dizzy. The spring of creativity made her feel energetic and full of life, so she often drank from this spring, although it did make her feel tired afterwards. Hope searched and searched for a spring that would give her the amount of sustenance that she found in the spring of possibility. And while she was exploring her new land, Faith came to visit again. During her visit, Faith asked Hope where the temple of equality in this land was, so Faith led her there. And inside the temple, she found the springs of love and community. When she mixed them together, she found they made the nectar of peace. The nectar of peace made Hope feel good and full and cozy. And so for a while, Hope spent her days drinking in the spring of creativity and her nights sheltered in the temple of equality, sleeping soundly after drinking in love and community. But still, Hope was not as nourished as she had been in the land of gladness. Hope longed for adventure that her current peace could not give her. She missed the taste of possibility. In the land of responsibility, Hope's hair of sunshine turned to straw, and her stardust freckles faded and fell from her cheeks. Still, she was comfortable, so for a time, she rested, knowing that at times she even felt winds from the land of gladness that would waft over her. Until one day, Hope got up in the morning to take her usual drink from the spring of creativity, and she saw a thick, oozing substance on the ground. The substance was actually spilling over into the spring. Hope followed the substance to its source, and she found that it spilled over from the spring of discontent. Hope worked all day and all night to try to save the waters of the spring of creativity from being contaminated. She worked to fight back the flood of liquid that was coming from the spring of discontent newly bubbled from the earth. But to no avail. The waters mixed. So thirsty, Hope drank from the spring that mixed both creativity and discontent and went back to her temple. Tired as she was, Hope accidentally went into a room in the temple that was not her own. Noticing her mistake, she excused herself. But before she could leave, she saw a large crack in one of the walls in this room of the temple. Hope didn't understand. There were no cracks in the walls in her room of the temple, and they were all supposed to be equal. Dismayed, she left that room and went into another room. This room was adorned with rich red furniture, and while it was plush, it was worn and threadbare. Hope didn't understand why the things in this room were allowed to lose their beauty when everything in her room was new and sparkling and white. Hope went in search for the guardian of the temple, Tradition. And Hope asked Tradition why some rooms had new things and other rooms did not have new things. Tradition told Hope that wealth worshiped with her in her room, and wealth was the one that kept things in good repair. When Hope asked Tradition why wealth only worshiped in one room, she was told that that was the way that it had always been. And without wealth, the other worshipers would have to make do with cracks in walls and failing furniture. Hope felt empty. She went back to her room of the temple, and she realized that the people living in her room never saw the other people in the other rooms. Even within the same temple of equality, they didn't see the others drinking from the same streams of love and community. Hope realized that the people in her room didn't know that other people had to live with cracks in their walls. They didn't know that some people had to live without people replacing their items of comfort. Lost and reeling, Hope once again did what she did in hard times. She called on her companion, Faith, to soothe her. Faith noticed that there had been changes in Hope. She noticed her need for nourishment, her straw hair, and her lack of sun-kissed freckles, star-kissed freckles. Faith told Hope of another temple far, far away in the land of progress. Faith told Hope that this temple was the meeting place of the guardians of all the other temples of equality all across the land, and that if she traveled there, the journey would be long and difficult, but she would have her questions answered. Hope felt that she didn't have a choice. So she packed her belongings and she said goodbye to her parents' time and knowledge, who encouraged her journey, and she set off for the land of progress. The journey was indeed long, but Faith accompanied her. When they got there, Hope was astonished by how beautiful the land of progress was. It was filled with streams, all kinds of new springs, and the air was warm, but the breeze blew constantly. Faith beckoned Hope to follow her to the temple on the hill. It was the place where all of the guardians of all the temples met to sing and pray, to eat and speak, and to make very big decisions. So Hope followed Faith up the long hill. It was very tiring to get to the top, and once she got there, she saw a vast temple. It was larger than any temple she'd ever seen before. It was big and looming, and frankly, a bit intimidating. And when Hope entered the threshold of the temple, she felt this buzz of energy, something that she'd never felt before. But the halls of the temple were cold and cavernous and empty. Just then, Faith turned to Hope, said, "I must be going," and abruptly left. Hope was scared and shocked and upset. Never in her life had Faith abandoned her before. Hope spent a long time wandering aimlessly through the halls of this temple, looking for answers. The only springs that she found in this temple were the springs of loneliness and confusion. Thirsty, she drank, but they made her feel horrible. One day, while she was wandering, a girl adorned with pearls approached Hope. She introduced herself as Grace. Grace told Hope that her inner light was not shining so brightly. Hope wasn't sure she fully understood what that meant. It seemed like the people in the temple didn't always speak in ways that were completely meaningful to her, but having a brighter inner light sounded like a good thing. So Hope listened. Grace told Hope that in the temple there were 2 teachers, and once she found them and learned their lessons, she would begin to see things more clearly. Hope thanked Grace, and she resumed her wandering with a newfound enthusiasm. Sooner than she thought, Hope passed a classroom, and inside were these 2 tall figures administering lessons to anxious and eager students. Hope was so excited that she ran into the classroom and began to immediately absorb whatever lessons were laid out for her. Hope learned that the teachers' names were Error and Ignorance. The lessons that Error and Ignorance gave to Hope were easy and uncomplicated. She thought that she was going to get her questions soon and without much effort, so she felt bolstered. At the end of the exercises, Error and Ignorance asked Hope to drink from a spring in order to quench her thirst and finally nourish her. Hope, at the guidance of Error and Ignorance, drank and drank and drank. And when she was done drinking, she felt a heavy weight begin to descend upon her whole person. "What spring is this?" asked Hope. "This is the spring of defeat," said error and ignorance. And they began to leave her. Hope felt the weight getting heavier. She slumped to the floor and couldn't move while she watched her teachers retreat. She was too dejected to protest. Hope sat there, feeling the effects of the spring of defeat. Faith was gone. Those she looked to for lessons had abandoned her, and she no longer felt at home in her temples. As the effects of the spring began to wear off, Hope gathered herself for the long journey home. Clearly, she had come to the wrong place. As she was leaving, Hope encountered Grace again. Hope was pretty angry with Grace for leading her astray. She said, "Grace, why? Why did you let me listen to error and ignorance?" Grace looked calm and grounded. She said, "I told you there were two great teachers in this temple. I did not say they were error and ignorance." "But Grace, why did you let me listen to error and ignorance? Why didn't you warn me about them?" asked Hope. And just then, two children turned the corner and appeared before Hope and Grace. "This," said Grace, "is perspective and failure. They are the teachers that you seek. They are the children of error and ignorance. They will give you your lessons." Error and ignorance approached, not error and ignorance, failure and perspective approached Hope, and they stood on either side of her protectively. They took her hands and led her further into the temple. As they did so, Hope passed many empty classrooms, thinking that she would be back one day to enter them. Failure and perspective welcomed Hope into a room with a soft, glowing light. And when she entered, she realized that the room was full of people, of all kinds of people, people like the ones in the other rooms, in the other temples, except they were all in one room. There were small cracks in the walls, but they seemed manageable. The furniture was made of many different colors, and while none of it was new, all of it was serviceable. Hope was approached by a man with a soft voice and an impeccable suit. He said he was the guardian of that temple, and his name was Enlightenment. Enlightenment showed Hope to the center of the room, where she saw a large fountain. It was something she'd never seen before. The fountain was mixing together all kinds of springs. In it, she saw the springs of creativity and love and community that had served her well in the past, but also there were the springs of humility, empathy, patience, compassion, self-awareness, and courage. "This," said Enlightenment, "is the nectar of wisdom. If you drink this nectar, you will be able to return to the classrooms and find the tools that you need to build up all the temples of equality in all the land to make them truly equal." Hope had traveled all this way just to hear this very message. She drank of the nectar. It tasted bitter, but she drank in wisdom nonetheless, hoping for a transformation. Hope drank, and as she took in more wisdom, she became accustomed to it. And one day, lo and behold, out of nowhere, she saw her old companion Faith just sitting on the fountain waiting for her. "Faith," said Hope, half angry and half relieved, "where have you been?" "I didn't leave on my own," said Faith. "You wanted me gone for a time, But now you've welcomed me back. The nectar of wisdom must be feeding you. I'm fed, said Hope, though the food is unappetizing. Try this, said Faith. And she added a little bit of the stream of acceptance into the mixture. Hope drank. Hope drank, and she drank, and she drank, and as she drank, she realized that she had never had anything so wholesome in her whole life. She was fed again like she never had been by possibility alone. As Hope drank, her senses became more enlivened, and she heard the patter of rain on the roof. Hope had forgotten how beautiful the land of progress was, so she asked Faith to go outside with her. Hope and Faith stood together outside on one of those rare days where there is both sunshine and rain. And as the water washed over her, Hope felt a transformation. Her hair was no longer made of straw, her face no longer made of the absence of stardust. Hope was becoming human. She smiled, and she felt the rain trickle into her mouth. "Oh my," said Hope, "I know this water. This is from the stream of possibility. This is from my childhood. It's the food of my childhood." "Yes," said Faith, "it is. And from time to time, when you're learning and growing, possibility will rain down on the land. And from time to time, things will get difficult again. The nectar of wisdom may become bitter, and at times, you may even want me gone again. But if you stay on your path and you open yourself up to the earth and the sky, possibility will rain down on you every so often." "What do I do now?" asked Hope. "Go back to your lessons," said Faith. "Don't forget the words of enlightenment. You need to go into those classrooms to learn to use the tools of truth, beauty, and justice so that you can build up all the temples in all the land to make them truly equal." Hope turned around and looked at this big temple where she had experienced anxiety, hurt, reconciliation, and growth. She looked down the hill at the long journey that had taken her where she was. Hope took a deep breath and realized that actually her journey was just beginning. May it be so with us all. Our offertory will now be taken. I hope that you are all as generous as you can be. Most weeks there is a Cares of the Congregation book outside in the Commons. This week, Anne Smiley invites us to travel into our linguistic heritage and reminds us that we are a meeting house, to welcome all, to gather in all, whichever background we come from, whatever brought you here, you are welcome. May we meet. If you would rise and join me in our final hymn. It's found in your order of service and not in your hymnal. It's a Holly Near song that I thought was too perfect not to sing. The first paragraph actually is the chorus, and it repeats after every other paragraph. If you know this song, sing out very loud, and if you don't, sing out louder. I could think to do for a benediction is to give up. Do you want folks to sit? Do you want folks to sit? Please sit. And the best thing I could think to do for a benediction is to give up the wisdom of the pulpit to someone who has given me so much wisdom on my time here, Lorna Aronson. Do you want me up here?
Well, many people may know, and some may not, that whenever we have an intern, there's a group of lay people who follow that intern around, give them lots of support and help as they move on this incredible journey that they're on. And so it's really been my honor and pleasure to be a member of Julie's internship ministry team for the last year, along with Charles Stinger, who's here, Sam Bates, Skylar Nealon, and Kirsten Sieber. It is just an incredible joy to work with Julie. One of the really great things that's actually in our job description from the UUA, from the Unitarian Universalist Association, is to help the congregation say goodbye to the intern as Julie goes on to the next place in her life. So we were thinking about really great ways that we could do that. One of the things that you could do, and they both include you, one of the things that you can do, if you haven't already, out in the commons, there is a table with cards on which you can write messages to Julie. We will give those messages to Julie as she leaves. We'll be collecting the messages through the end of next week. So if you don't have time to write a message now, please take a sheet home and bring it back next week or during the week. There are boxes in the loggia and down here in the commons where you can leave your messages for Julie, and we'll make sure that she gets them. So as you go out, please check our table. We have markers and crayons. I thought I should bring glitter markers, but I forgot to do that. But anything, draw her a picture or a heart, or the kids drew a lot of hearts, but something to send her on her way. The other thing that we'd like to do, we really do love to eat, right? Potlucks and all that for Unitarian Universalists is kind of standard fare. So we thought about having a cake and, it would say, good luck on your way, so forth. Well, we thought instead that we would do something that actually honors the work that Julie did, especially in the earth-based spirituality curriculum that she did this year, and also honors her commitment to community. Some of you might recognize this ritual from our Christmas Eve ritual. At the back of the auditorium, there will be people standing with loaves of bread. We ask that you break off a piece of bread and take it with you, and have that sustenance be a part of the sustenance that Julie has given us over the course of this year.
And I just have to say that it is not easy keeping me out of trouble. So I would like to have a big round of applause for my ministry team and my supervisor, Michael.
So Julie, we have two gifts for you, an expression of appreciation for all you've contributed to our community during the course of your ministry. So the first, I'll let Lorna take that, are bound copies, the bound notebooks of the messages that we have received so far, and the messages that we will continue to receive will be bound into a further notebook as well. And this, in the box, is a stone chalice carved by Dave Weber, member of our congregation, from stone from the old lower meeting house. So in addition to expressions of appreciation for all that you have contributed, these are also expressions in keeping with the theme of today's service for the fondest hopes that we have for your future in ministry, for your future life. May they be a source of inspiration and perhaps of guidance in times when needed. Thanks, Julie.
And you have one more opportunity to be a community with Julie. Please be seated and turn to number 685 in the back of the hymnal. please read along with me these words from T.S. Eliot. What we call a beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. We shall not cease from exploration and the end of all our exploring. We draw where we started and know the place for the first time. And we've heard words of wisdom from some of Julie's favorite sources, like Harry Potter and so forth. So I have one final word from one of my favorite sources. This final short reading is attributed to A.A. Milne, the author of Winnie the Pooh. And I know that I speak for the congregation and the ministry team and the staff when I say these words. How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. Thank you so much, Julie.